Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Sherman Read. Today I'll be doing yet another Goodreads reading challenge for myself, and that is to read fantasy. So before I dive into the books I'm hoping to pick up for this video, if you're new to this channel, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below, as well as hit the notification bell to get notifications every time I post a new video. Let's get started with all the books I hope to finish for this video. So as always, I have my trusty laptop over here, and I'm just going to go through all the top 10 books and see which ones I'll be picking up. So the winner actually is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, which I have already read, gave it 5 stars, really loved it. I'm waiting for the sequel to come out, which should be, I think it's like in a few months or something like that, but I'm excited for it. Next book over here is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V. Schwab. This is a book that I will be picking up as well. I cannot find my copy right now. I've been looking everywhere for it and I don't know where it is, but I do have a copy of it somewhere. But either way, I'll be picking up this book for this video as well. I've heard mixed things, but all I know is about this woman who has, like, due to some sort of like exchange like a long time ago, some sort of bargain, she ends up like she's able to like live forever, but in exchange she like no one's able to retain any memories of her. So she's basically just living life, you know, on the wind, and no one remembers her, no one ever recalls her, no one can tell any story. She makes no like meaningful relationships with anyone because no one remembers her, and then until one day she goes to a bookstore and someone remembers her name. So then the third book on here is The House of the Cerulean Sea by TJ Cloon. This is another book that I've heard just amazing reviews about. It's about this guy. He goes to this place where it's like an orphanage, and apparently like these kids have dangerous magical abilities, and there is a caretaker. His name is Arthur, and so Linus, who's the main character, goes there for some reason, and the two of them end up falling in love, I believe. So I've heard great things. Like I said, definitely cannot wait to read this book and just find out for myself. Next book on here is Rhythm of War by Sanderson. This is a book that I would not be picking up because I believe this is like, yeah, this is book 4 of the Stormlight arc. I have not even read the first book, guys, so I would not be picking up this book at all. But I am planning on picking up the series at some point, though, just not for this video. Then this next book over here is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This is a book that I picked up a while ago, and I don't know, like I am excited for it. It's supposed to be about how like different boroughs in New York City have like people, like actual personalities. Yeah, because apparently it's like Manhattan, and then there's Bronx, and then Brooklyn. Like every great city has a soul. That's what it says. And in New York City, she has 6 souls. So I'm like kind of curious about the premise of this book. The issue, not the issue, but like my trepidation is the fact that I have read her other books recently, which is, I forget the name of that series, but it's one like the most like it's the one where like the world keeps ending over and over again. I read the first book, and then I was like okay with it, but then I got to the second book and I just like lost interest completely. It's been like months to the point that now I just like DNF'd it. So now I'm kind of like, I hope I don't struggle with this book. So I mean, either way though, I will be picking this book and see like how I like it or not. The next book on here is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrell. This is a book that I will be picking up. I don't have a copy of it. I'm going to try to pick up as an audiobook or an ebook. I'm not entirely sure. I do want to get a copy of it physically, but I'm not sure yet. But yeah, this is a book that I will be picking up. Like I really enjoyed the other book by this author, The 1,000 Daughters of January, which is just so whimsical, so dreamlike, just really stunning writing style. I love like the plot itself as well. Great characters, that I have really high hopes for this one. The next book over here is Piranesi. Hope I pronounced that name correctly, by Susanna Clark. This is by the same author who wrote that incredibly long, dainty book. It's like the Mr. Norris book or something. Yeah, I don't exactly have the name on the top of my head, but that book was not good for me. I really didn't like it. It was a struggle to read it. It was written in a way that I just did not like at all. So I would not be picking up this book. Like this author right now, I'm just like not interested. The next book over here is Deadly Education by Naomi. This is a book that I will be picking up. I've heard controversy over it, but I had picked up like a long time ago, mainly because I really like the author writing, like Thinning Silver. So I still want to read it, so I'll see how this goes. It's kind of like find out for myself if I like it or not, I suppose. But I do know the controversy around it, so I am aware of that prior going into this book. The next book over here is Empire of Gold by S.A. Choco. This is a book that I will be picking up. I mean, This book is so stunning. I finally read the second book recently, so I have really high hopes to just like finish this third book and the series as soon as possible. I also did mention this book in my series I hope to finish sometime soon video, so I'll link that above and somewhere down below in case you want to check that out. But now that I finished the second book, now that I finished the second book, I definitely am on like I'm aware of what's going on right now. It's fresh in my head, so it's easy for me to just pick up this book and just continue on with the series and just finish it off. The last and final book on here is Peace Talks by Jem Butcher. This is a book that I would not be picking up, just never really had an interest in this book or the author. So yeah, those are all the books I'll be picking up for this video. Basically, I have these 4 over here, plus The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, as well as Once and Future Witches, which I just don't currently have on hand right now. I really do need to find that book, guys. It's like somewhere around here. I've been looking everywhere for it, but just don't know where it is right now. So yeah, I'm excited for all these books and see what happens and if I like them or not. Yeah, but I have some pretty high hopes for some of them. Like House of Cerulean Sea, I think is like top of my list for sure out of all of the books, and then probably Empire will go with my second one just because I really enjoy like the series so far. The other ones like Deadly Education, City We Became, Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, those are books that have like some controversy, mixed reviews recently that I'm like not so sure right now. So we'll see, guys. Like, we'll see about all of these books, and I'll let you know what my thoughts are once I get to reading. So I have not been the best in terms of updating this vlog here. I think I started this video like, I don't know, like back in the summer, and it's now November, and so far I have read 1 book prior to this. But I'm happy that this time around I have 2 books that I managed to finish for this video. The first book that I want to discuss is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrell. This book I gave 3 stars. I was honestly very disappointed by this book. I just had such high expectations because I really enjoyed 1,000 Days of January. It was just whimsical, it was beautiful, I love the story, I love the characters. This book was just not what I expected. I was expecting like witches and magic and, you know, just how there'd be like a beautiful written book again, but like in terms of like other than that though, I didn't really like expect too much. But this book was very heavily focused on feminism and what it means to be a woman, which honestly I don't mind. I like books with feminine messages. I just don't like them when I wasn't expecting them. Like when they come out of the blue, I'm just like, that's not what I signed up for. Like I signed up for a book that, you know, will transport me to a fantasy world, not a book that really directly parallels our current situation in this world right now. And I was reading this book to escape, not to be reminded of, you know, reality. And so for me, I just like don't like books like that. So anyways, before I get really into like my thoughts, this book basically follows 3 sisters who became estranged from different various reasons with each other. And so for many years they have not met each other, they have not seen each other, they just gone on their separate lives, and suddenly something happens and the 3 of them are brought back together in the same city or like same town. And there have always been witches in their society, but they have like witches basically at this point have been exterminated in a way because, you know, men have been just like against them. They've been tracking them, keeping them like, you know, like they don't want them. Even like some of the females are against witches. So witches for the most part they're gone, they're not there anymore. But these sisters have actually grew up with knowledge of magic, but they never really like believe in most of it, I believe. There's just been a lot of history about magic in these 3 sisters, but then things start to happen where they're brought back together, and they start to realize that they need to really like fight for magic, and just fight for women in general. And so they start to reach out to other women, see if they want to do some sort of society with the other of them, and just really bring back magic again. And with bringing back magic, they bring back, you know, the rights of women. This book was just, like I said already, not what I expected at all. I was really expecting just like magic and witches and just their dynamics with each other and just dealing with like magical things. And while that is the case, I just didn't expect all the feminist messages behind it. I just feel like there's too many parallels about this book and the real world, about how like, you know, men are constantly, you know, keeping like women silent, and there's not much stuff that women can do. And then like, yeah, like women have grown like in terms of like 100 years ago to now with like some of our women's rights, but it's still like at the core of it, it's still very focused on like men and how they have more rights than women in this world, just like anything, like job wise they have more opportunities, salary wise they're paid more, just a lot of things like that. So this book just like, I don't know, I just didn't expect it, and it just felt like such a chore to read it. I also listened to an audiobook, so I'm not sure if like, no, let me rephrase that. I started reading this physically, but then I couldn't get into it, and then I was like, let me just read this, you know, audioly and just see how it goes, because I was really determined to finish this book. I was like, I really enjoyed her first book, there's no way I don't like this one. And unfortunately though, like about halfway through I was like, I really don't care much for this book at all. I gave it 3 stars because I do still, end of the day, I do like the messages, I just wasn't expecting them, so it just like really like deterred my experience. Like it really like hindered my experience overall of this book, so I just, like I said, was not expecting it. But I did like the messages, I did like the dynamics between the sisters. I think the ending, the epilogue, was powerful. I really enjoyed the epilogue. I think that really brought up the book from like a 2-star to like a 3-star. There's just so much about that like few pages that like brought everything home, and it was very emotional as well. And I was like, wow, like this is what I was expecting for this entire book, and I only got that in the epilogue. So I don't know, I just felt like this book was also like very thick. Like Untitled Chapter was like a small book. I think it was like 200 pages or so, like less than 300 pages for sure. This book was chunky, and I was expecting $1,000 January, but like a bigger version. That was not the case at all. So anyway, the point is, I was just like very disappointed by this book, and I didn't really like it. And that's all I can really say, but the cover is still really pretty though. So alright, then this next book that I did pick up for this video is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Cloon. This book was amazing. Oh my god, I love this book so much. 5 stars, 100%. I read this book so quickly. I think I finished it in like within 2 days. Like I was just invested. Like every time I was just like, I need to read this book, I need to know what happens next. It was just beautiful, like from the writing, the story, to the characters. The characters are just so precious to me. Like I just love all the characters. So this book basically follows a guy, his name is Linus Baker, who is a caseworker for the department in charge of magical youth, where he basically just goes along to these orphanages and kind of like investigates to see like how they're being run, if the children are being treated well, if the master of the house, like the owner, like the person in charge, is treating the children well, etc. He just like goes in there and writes very meticulous reports. And one day he ends up receiving some sort of confidential classified mission where he needs to go to this house in the Cerulean Sea and basically do a report as well. And because he's known for his very meticulous, very detailed, very objective reports, he was asked to sit there because they want to know if that place has been managed very well, and they haven't been receiving like very good reports from the master himself. So they were like, we will, you know, get Linus Baker, we will send him out, we'll have him stay there for a month, send us reports every week, and just see like how it's being run. And so they trusted him in the sense that he would give them a very accurate, truthful representation of what was going on in the house, because they want to make sure that everything is safe. And the reason why they do this is because this house is very special. This orphanage is very special because it houses 6 young children who are extremely dangerous. And so at first he goes there, and like there's one child in particular that he's like, oh my god, I can't believe this child's here. And he goes in there with all these expectations, like these bad expectations, because he, you know, just because of like what the child is. And so like as he stays there and he starts to, you know, learn more about these children and interact with them a lot more, and as he interacts with the master of the house, he realizes that there's just so much more than he had imagined. Like his initial expectations was not at all what was the truth. And so I really enjoy this book because it was just all about like his finding out, you know, who these children are, and just learning to interact with them, and just being like finding his true home. And like also there's a romance here between him and the master, obviously, as you probably know. There's just so much about those that was just so adorable, and I just love the interactions. Like Lucy, okay, first of all, Lucy was the cutest. Like I loved him from the start because he was one of those like precocious like 6-year-olds where he would say all these things and Linus would be like, oh my god, like I can't believe. And Linus also himself is just freaking hilarious. He's very like stoic, and you can tell that he's very like socially awkward too. So he's very like, he's not sure how to like respond properly, and then he would just be like, you know, he's also very like a loner in a way, so he never really interacted with any of his co-workers before. He's very much like, he goes to work, he does his job well, he goes home, that's it, and he hangs out with his cats, that's it. So like going from that kind of lifestyle to living at this beautiful house on this beautiful ocean, just made like, it just changed everything, like how he like sees himself, how he sees the world, how he, you know, like comes to expect like certain things, and it just changed him as a person. I love that character growth because I don't know, it just like, it was so whimsical, and it was so like so powerful and very, oh god, what's that word when you're just like, it's very like optimistic, very hopeful. And I really just loved everything about this book. Lucy was my favorite character. I really enjoyed Talia as well, like she was so funny as a gnome, like so freaking hilarious. Also like Theodore and Chauncey were like super adorable, and Sal was just such a sweetheart, like he was such a soft boy, and he was just there were just so many characters in the book that I just absolutely adored, and I can see why so many people love it so much. If you have not read this book yet, like I highly recommend it. It's so freaking good. All right, giving you guys another update because I have been reading The City We Became by Jemisin. I am actually going to be DNFing this book. I got to 11% of the way through, which really is not a ton. I mean, it's probably like 50 pages or so, but this book is just, I'm not feeling it at all. I've been trying to read this book since, I want to say like for the past like 3-4 days now, and it is just not good. But I don't know, because I've been listening to this on audiobook, and I don't know if it's a narrator or whatever, but the premise sounded super fascinating. So for what I understand, this is a book where it follows the fact that most cities have like one, you know, person who kind of like, it's like, I don't know, like has the energy, has the spirit of a city. But for New York, because there's like 5 boroughs, there's 5 like energies person thing going on. And so like the beginning is also like super confusing because it seems like people, like just random people, are coming into New York and suddenly they are feeling things about, you know, just New York City. And I don't know, it's just like a really weird, like I'm just confused. Like I've barely gotten through it. I've listened to it like on my car rides and stuff, and I'm just really confused with it in general. All I know is that I think we've met like Manhattan, and he is someone who like just visited, and he has like no recollection in terms of like what his life was before he came to the city. He just knows that he came here for college, and he had a friend that he was supposed to be like living with or something like that. And I don't know, like it's just a mess. Like I just feel like everything about this book so far is messy, it is convoluted, it is confusing, and I'm not vibing with it. So I'm just going to be DNFing this book, which is honestly very disappointing because this is now the second book that I have DNF'd by the same author. If you have watched my like 5-star predictions video where I discuss, you know, the books that I had mentioned, you know, a year or 2 years ago at this point, I talked about the books kind of like a follow-up, and I realized that her books are just not my cup of tea. I don't know what it is about this author, her writing, her characters. It's just, it doesn't vibe with me. So what I can say about this book, it sounds like it's just so disappointing because her books seem like they sound so promising. Like the premise sounds really good, like the whole idea of like cities having souls, and it's basically like being represented in like individuals. It just seems like a really cool premise, but the execution just, I don't know. Like please let me know in the comments below if I am the only person, because I feel like almost everyone I know have really enjoyed her books before, and just all the other ones, like the Broken Earth trilogy one is like super popular. This one that came out also like equally popular. So let me know down below like if I'm the only one who's just like not vibing with this author, or if there's other people like me, because please let me like relate to you guys. But it's just not like my cup of tea. So that's all I can say for this book. Okay, so I'm actually in the middle of editing this video over here, and I realized that one of my clips have, I don't know what happened to it, so I need to like basically re-update you guys on that book. And 2, I still haven't actually updated you guys on the last 2 books that I finished, so I'm going to do that all really quickly in this clip right here, and then just finish out the vlog, because I don't think I actually even like finished the vlog either. So yeah, basically like I'm just been like a huge mess. This video has been, I think I started this video back in August and it is now December, so it's just been like lagging. Yeah, like I've been procrastinating, I've just been dragging it on. It's just been a hot mess, and like now that I'm like crazy busy, I'm just trying to like, yeah, I'm just surviving here, okay guys? So anyways, the clip that is missing is for Deadly Education, which I gave 2 stars. So I read this book a while ago, so I don't really remember like everything, but I do remember not loving the story. I remember being like very confused. So this book basically follows a girl who ends up going to this like magical boarding academy where everyone there is basically just fighting for their lives. There's no real classes or anything like that. The whole point to graduate is to survive. So if you survive, you graduate. The thing about this girl though is that she's actually incredibly powerful, to the point that anything that she does, like any magical spells, is like extremely powerful, and she's worried about like letting loose because, you know, instead of just like, she doesn't really have control. So instead of just like letting go and just, you know, killing the monsters, she might accidentally kill her fellow classmates. So she's trying to avoid that, obviously, and so because of that, she ends up getting saved by this other guy numerous times because he thinks that she can't fend for herself, and plus he's one of those like hero type guys anyways, and she's very like aggravated by him because she wants to, you know, be the one to show everyone like, hey, actually I am beneficial and that I'm not some like damsel in distress, but he is just completely like throwing her plans like through the roof. So like it's just like a weird, it's just like it's a very interesting book, I want to say. I really did not like the main character at all. I found her to be very just like aggravating. She's very frustrating. She, like, the way how she considers people is all about assets. So she doesn't really consider any of the classmates as her friend. She just thinks about like, oh, are they beneficial to her, and if they are, like, what can they do, and if they're not, then she's like, I don't want anything to do with them. Which, I mean, like, in a way I kind of get, because this whole school is about survival, so you want to make sure that the friends that you make are helpful, but at the same time, like, the way how she like thinks that is like, I can't deal with anyone else. Whereas like the hero guy is all about just saving everyone loves him, and it's just like a total difference, like total contrast between the two characters. But there is like a romance in here which I found very endearing. I don't know, like somehow their like interactions together and his like mannerism towards her is just like so endearing and so cute, which is why I ended up giving this book like 2 stars, because everything else I really didn't like. It was just a very confusing book as well. Like there's a lot of magic system that I found very like confusing because nothing was really explained. Everything was kind of just like vaguely there, and you're just kind of like figuring out things for yourself, which some people like. I personally am not the biggest fan because sometimes I just want to know what's happening, because then I can like actually enjoy the plot instead of like trying to also figure out like everything else. So I don't know, like it's just, I didn't like the story. There's also a lot of like discussion about like the racism in here, which I don't know, personally for me, like there was discussion about like how there was racism towards like some of the Asian, like the Mandarin speakers in here. Personally, as a person who does speak Mandarin, I didn't really feel anything like towards it. I was just like, okay, cool, like I'm glad they actually included it. And they even specify like different dialects of Mandarin, because Mandarin is not just one language, there has like a lot of other dialects there. So there was a differentiation between that, which I actually enjoyed that the author included it. But I don't know, for like other aspects of it, I can't really, you know, give my 2 cents because I'm not part of that like audience. But as a Mandarin speaker and as a Chinese speaker, like I didn't see anything negative about it at all, to be honest. So that's what I'm gonna really say for my side in terms of that discussion. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna say anyways in terms of this book in general. Moving on to like the 2 other books I did manage to finish for this video. So the first one over here is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. I actually really enjoyed this book. I gave this book 4 stars. To be honest, I was not expecting much. I've heard a lot of like things about, I don't know, like racism. Like people, I think like Cindy, like even the whole video about, she compared like the racism about how like Naomi did one that was like literally too like inclusive, that made her seem like she didn't really know what she was talking about and kind of like was a racist on that end. Whereas this book was all about her and just like she lived for like 300 years, but for some reason she never explored anywhere else. So everywhere that she had was just all about like white people. And so like it was kind of a weird like discussion between, you know, the 2 different types of authors who were trying to do things very differently. And I found like that really really fascinating, because this book, when I was reading it, I went into it thinking like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be like all about white people. I'm curious to see like why she didn't, you know, travel a bit more, which was the reason why I gave this book 4 stars, because I felt like the main character was very confused. So this book basically follows a girl called Addie Larue, who in like 1600, she is living in a small town, small village in France, and she wants to just escape. She wants to have her freedom, she wants to live her own life, and she is being forced to marry someone that she has no interest in marrying whatsoever. And so the day of her wedding, she ends up escaping to like the river and calls upon the god and decides to, you know, have a bargain. You know, have my soul after I'm done using it, but I would like to have my freedom and just the ability to live however I want to. And so this god ends up cursing her and giving her the ability to be immortal, live as long as she wants, have the freedom that she desires, but in exchange for that, no one remembers her. So for the past 300 years, she's been like wandering through, you know, villages, towns, cities, just different like places, time, and no one has been able to remember her. So as soon as they turn around, as soon as they go through a door, as soon as they, you know, just do something else, they will come back and be like, who is this person? Like, how do I not know who this person is? So she's been living her life basically as a ghost for the past 300 years. And so fast forward to modern day, she is at a bookstore, and one day she goes there to, you know, read a book, but of course, because no one remembers her, she ends up like stealing the book. She's been like stealing her entire life. That's how she's been surviving. So she steals a book, and she goes back the next day to, you know, like return the book to exchange it for another one, and the guy actually remembers her, and she's like, what the heck, like, how does this guy remember her? So now she is very intrigued, and of course she becomes invested with this guy. You know, like romance ensues, things happen, and so that's what this book is about. Like I said already, like, I liked how everything went with this book. I really like just the back and forth between her throughout the years, because it was a like, it was like an alternative, like a timeline between present day and her history, but the history was like a moving history. So sometimes it would be in the 1600, then it'll move to the 1700 and the 1800. She went to different places. But my biggest issue with this character is the whole point of her having this freedom, like the whole point of her calling upon this god to, you know, ask for her freedom, was that she can live her life. But for some reason, for like 100 years, she never even left France. Like, all she went to was like Paris, and then a few times she went back to her village. And I'm just like, you've been living for 100 years, like, you're not tired of it? Like, I just don't understand. Like, Paris, yes, it's a big city, but like 100 years, like, you never once thought like, hey, let's, you know, go to like Germany next door, or let me go to England, or like wherever. Like, the only time she ever like ended up in like a different country was because she was forced to. Like, the demon god guy came by to visit her and basically took her to Italy, and just like left her there. So she was forced to go there, and then she was like, wow, like, I never even thought about leaving France. And I'm just like, what? I was like, for someone who like was all about her freedom, like, it just seemed really weird to me that she never had any like dreams to actually see the world. Like, I don't know, like, if I feel like if I want my freedom to do whatever I want, you know, with any means possible, like, I would want to see the world. Like, wouldn't people want to like see what's out there? Like, the fact that she never even, like, it's not like she was in some sort of like landlocked island, you know, where traveling somewhere would be like an effort. She literally can just walk past. There's like Europe is a very easy place to travel, like, within all the different countries. So it's like baffling to me that I was just like, how is this character like what? So like, I'm just like really confused on that end, because like I feel like she was very confused, because I just can't fathom someone who is willing to live for so long but not be interested in like literally traveling like 100 miles away to like a different country. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the only reason why I'm giving this book 4 stars. Otherwise, I really enjoyed this story. I liked the writing. It was very like digestible. It flowed well. I really liked reading about the side characters. There were just a lot that was, you know, very endearing. The ending was also very, very like bittersweet and heartwarming at the same time. I really enjoyed it. It was very like realistic, and I was so here for that, even though it was very sad. But anyways, I was gonna say for that book. Then the last and final book that I did read for this vlog is Empire of Gold. This book was phenomenal. It was 5 stars. Honestly, I loved every single thing about this book. I was a little bit worried because I felt like the second book that I read recently was okay. Like, it was not a bad book by any means, but it was just long. And this book, like, I flew through it. Like, I really did not expect myself to finish it in like as short as I did. Because I was so invested with the story. I was so curious. I wanted to know what was going to happen next, and there were just so many beautiful moments throughout the book that I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. And at the end I was like, wow, this is such a fucking masterpiece. Like, I can see why so people love the series, because the ending was just amazing, and it like brought the whole story back so well. There were so many like, you know, iffy, like touchy moments here and there where I wasn't sure what was going to happen next, but it was just like, ultimately it's a really good book. So this book basically just continues on with the series. I'm not going to talk too much in terms of like what the first 2 books were about, but this book just follows along with Nadi and Dara, as well as Ali, and like all the main characters, and just kind of like winning back Davabad, and that's really all I can say about it without going too much into it. But it is a story about like jinns and devas and magic, and like set in a fantasy like Middle Eastern setting, and I really enjoyed it. There's just so many moments about this book that was just beautiful, and that's all I can really say. It was just like a beautiful book. Like, I really enjoyed it. I literally just like, I have to finish it. I think I got to the last like 100 pages or so, and I was like, no, I need to just like sit here and finish it, because I need to know, like, I can't let it like linger on for another day. So I just like sat there and I just like read it, and then it got kind of late, but I was like, I need to finish this book, because like that's how good this book was. So anyways, I was gonna say, for all the books that I read for this time around, I had some high books and then some mediocre books, but let's just kind of go through the books I did read. So coming at a last place over here would be City We Became, which I DNF'd. So obviously, like, I don't even know it's really last place, but like I couldn't even finish the book. Then the one above that was Deadly Education, which I gave 2 stars. Next was Once and Future Witches, which I gave 3 stars, only because the epilogue was a very powerful read. Then I gave Invisible Life of Addie Larue 4 stars. And then the last 2 books, Empire of Gold as well as The House in the Cerulean Sea, I gave them both 5 stars. So looking at the winner of this category, it was House of Earth and Blood, which I believe I voted for this one. I'm not really sure, because I might have read this like right after this whole thing came out, but I believe I gave that book like 5 stars. Like, it was like either 4.5, 5 stars. I don't exactly remember. And Invisible Life of Addie Larue came second, but for me that was actually like 3rd place. I would say that House in the Cerulean Sea as well as Empire of Gold was the top 2 for me, and then House of Earth and Blood will probably be like top 3 as well. Like, I would say they're about the same ranking overall. So that's what I'm gonna say in terms of like in relation with like the other winners for what was chosen. But yeah, that's all I can say in terms of this video. It's very long and lengthy, like last clip here. So let me know down below if you have read any of the books that I read this time around. What did you guys think about them? But as always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. And if you'd like to see more content of me, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below, as well as hit the notification button. But as always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.